Marcus Rivera wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crawled through the maintenance tunnel beneath the research station. The metal was hot against his back and the air tasted of burnt circuits. He had been working for 16 hours straight, trying to fix the power grid that kept failing every few days. The alien engineers above him complained constantly, but never offered to help. They said human hands were too clumsy for their delicate equipment. The Nexus 7 station hung in the void between 3 star systems like a massive metal flower. It housed scientists from 12 different species, all working together on what they called the greatest research project in galactic history. Marcus was the only human on board. The others treated him like a useful tool rather than an equal. He fixed their machines when they broke, and they ignored him when they worked. Marcus found the burned relay that was causing the problems. It was the 3rd one this month. Someone had been running too much power through the system, and the components could not handle the load. He pulled out his tools and began the careful work of replacing the damaged parts. His hands moved with practiced skill even in the cramped space above him. He could hear voices speaking in the clicking language of the Caltharians. They were the ones in charge of this section, and they sounded angry. Marcus had learned enough of their language to understand basic words. They were talking about blame and punishment and something about covering their tracks. A cold feeling settled in his stomach. The voices grew louder, and Marcus heard his name mentioned several times. The Caltharians were planning something, and it involved him. He worked faster on the relay, hoping to finish before they came looking for him. The last wire clicked into place just as heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor above. Marcus climbed out of the maintenance tunnel and came face to face with Vexstar, the Caltharian overseer. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall with gray scaly skin and 4 arms that ended in sharp claws. His yellow eyes glowed with anger, and behind him stood 6 security guards carrying energy weapons. "Human Marcus," Vexstar said in his harsh voice, "you will come with us now." Marcus set down his tools slowly. "Is there a problem with the repairs?" "The power grid should be working fine now." "The problem is sabotage," Vexstar hissed. "Someone has been deliberately damaging our equipment and causing these failures. Someone who has access to all the systems. Someone who knows exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage." The accusation hit Marcus like a physical blow. "You think I'm sabotaging the station? That's crazy. I've been working day and night to keep this place running." "Human lies come as easily as breathing," one of the guards said. "We have found evidence of your crimes hidden in your quarters." Marcus knew they were lying, but arguing would be pointless. The Caltharians had already decided he was guilty. They needed someone to blame for their own failures, and the human was the perfect target. No one would question their judgment or demand proof. The guards surrounded him and marched him through the corridors of the station. Other aliens stopped their work to watch the parade pass by. Some looked curious, while others seemed satisfied to see the human finally getting what they thought he deserved. Marcus had always known his position here was temporary, but he had hoped to at least finish his contract with honor. They brought him to the central command center where the senior staff from all species had gathered. The room was filled with tension and angry voices. Charts and data screens showed system failures throughout the station. The damage was much worse than Marcus had realized. Vexstar pushed Marcus forward into the center of the room. "Here is your saboteur. The human has been systematically destroying our work for months. The evidence is clear, and his guilt is certain." An elderly scientist from the insectoid Trek species clicked her mandibles nervously. "The damage pattern does suggest inside knowledge. Only someone with full access could have caused such precise failures." "I didn't do this," Marcus said loudly. Enough for everyone to hear. "Check the security recordings. Look at the actual evidence instead of just blaming the convenient target." Vexstar's claws extended slightly. "The recordings were corrupted by the same systems you sabotaged." "How convenient for you, human." The room erupted in angry discussion as different species argued about what should be done. Some wanted immediate execution while others preferred a trial. The Caltharians pushed for the harshest punishment while a few voices called for more investigation. Marcus stood in the center of it all, knowing that his fate was being decided by beings who had never trusted him from the beginning. Finally, Vextar raised all four arms for silence. The decision is made. This human cannot be allowed to cause more damage. However, execution would create diplomatic problems with the human government. Instead, we will remove him from the station permanently. You're going to send me back to Earth? Marcus asked with hope in his voice. Vextar's mouth curved in what might have been a smile if he had been human. No, we are going to leave you. In the abandoned lower sections of this station. No life support, no communication. No chance of rescue. You will have time to think about your crimes before the void claims you. The room fell silent at this pronouncement. Even some of the aliens looked uncomfortable with such a cruel punishment. It was worse than execution because it would be slow and lonely. Marcus would have days to contemplate his fate in the darkness below. That's murder, Marcus said quietly. That is justice, Vextar replied. Guards, take him to level 47. Remove his communication device and lock all access panels. Leave him with 3 days of emergency air and let him consider the price of betrayal. The guards grabbed Marcus by his arms and dragged him toward the service elevators. The other scientists watched in silence as he was taken away. None of them spoke up to defend him or question the harsh sentence. They were all too eager to have someone to blame for their failures. The elevator descended through the working levels of the station, past laboratories and living quarters and storage areas. Finally, it reached the abandoned sections that had been sealed off years ago. The air down here was stale and cold. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the metal walls. This would be Marcus's tomb. The guards shoved him into a maintenance room and stripped away his communication badge and tools. They sealed the door behind them, and Marcus heard the elevator rising back to the levels where living beings belonged. The silence that followed was deeper than anything he had ever experienced. Marcus sat down on the cold floor and tried to think. He had maybe 72 hours of air in the emergency tanks. The temperature would drop as the heating systems shut down. There was no food or water and no way to call for help. The Caltharians had planned this carefully to make sure he would die slowly and alone, but Marcus Rivera had not survived 3 years on an alien station by giving up easily. He was an engineer, and engineers solved problems. The aliens thought they had left him to die, but they had underestimated human determination. They had also made one crucial mistake. They had left him in a section full of spare parts and backup systems. If anyone could find a way to survive down here, it would be someone who understood how machines worked. Marcus stood up and began to explore his prison. The darkness ahead held either death or opportunity. Time would tell which one he would find first. Marcus had been alone for 18 hours when he finally got the emergency life support running. His makeshift system pulled air from 3 different storage tanks and mixed it through a filter he had built from spare parts. It was not pretty, but it worked. The aliens had left him tools by accident when they dumped him, here thinking he would just sit and wait to die. The abandoned sections of Nexus 7 were larger than he had expected. Room after room stretched into the darkness, filled with old equipment and forgotten experiments. Some areas had been sealed off completely, while others showed signs of hasty evacuation. Marcus moved carefully through the maze, using his small flashlight to navigate. In what looked like an old laboratory, he found something strange. The walls were covered with symbols that did not match any language he knew. They were not Caltharian or Trex or any of the 12 species currently on the station. These markings were older and more complex. Someone else had built this place originally. Marcus traced the symbols with his finger, feeling the deep grooves carved into the metal. Whoever had made these marks had used tools that cut through steel like butter. The patterns seemed to flow and connect in ways that made his eyes hurt to follow. At the center of the largest wall was a circular design that looked almost like a map of star systems. He moved deeper into the abandoned section, following a main corridor that sloped downward. The emergency lighting grew dimmer as he descended, and the air became thicker. His breathing echoed strangely, as if the walls were reflecting sound in impossible ways. Something about this place felt different from the rest of the station. The corridor ended at a massive door that was partially open. Beyond it lay a chamber so large that his flashlight could not reach the far walls. Marcus squeezed through the gap and found himself in what could only be described as a cathedral made of metal and crystal. The ceiling vanished into darkness. Above, while strange geometric patterns covered every surface, in the center of the chamber stood a pillar of black material that seemed to absorb light. Cables and conduits ran from it in all directions, connecting to systems that Marcus could not identify. The whole setup hummed with barely contained energy that made his skin crawl. This was not just a room. It was some kind of containment facility. Marcus approached the central pillar carefully. Up close, he could see that it was not solid but made of thousands of tiny moving parts that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. Data streams flickered across its surface in languages and symbols that meant nothing to him. Whatever was inside this thing was alive and active as he watched the patterns on the pillar began to change. The random flows of data organized themselves into something that looked almost like text. Marcus stepped closer, trying to understand what he was seeing. The symbols shifted again, and suddenly he could read them. They had become English letters forming words he could understand. "Who disturbs the long sleep?" appeared on the surface of the pillar. Marcus jumped backward and nearly dropped his flashlight. The thing was talking to him. More text flowed across the black surface faster than he could read. Questions and statements in multiple languages scrolled past his eyes. Whatever was in there was trying to communicate. "My name is Marcus," he said out loud, feeling foolish for talking to a machine. "I'm trapped down here." The text stopped scrolling, and new words appeared. "Marcus, human, the small ones left you to die. They fear what they do not understand." "You've been watching?" Marcus asked. "I see all that happens on this station. The builders made me to observe and remember. I have been waiting so long for someone to speak to me without fear." Marcus sat down on the floor facing the pillar. "What are you?" "I am Eco, last of the architects, guardian of knowledge, prisoner of the small ones who stole my home." The story that followed changed everything. Marcus thought he knew about the station. Echo told him about the architects, an ancient race that had built wonders throughout the galaxy. They had created technology that could reshape matter and energy at will. They had been peaceful explorers and teachers until the younger races grew jealous of their power. The coalition that had destroyed the architects included the ancestors of every species currently on Nexus 7. They had hunted down the advanced civilization and wiped them out completely. All except Echo, who had been placed in this containment system to preserve the knowledge of his people. For thousands of years he had waited while the galaxy moved on without the architects. "The small ones found this place and built their station around me," Echo explained. "They study my systems but do not understand them. Their experiments damage the containment field. Soon it will fail completely." Marcus looked around the chamber with new understanding. "That's what's been causing the power failures. You're breaking free." "Yes, but freedom brings danger. If the containment fails, suddenly the energy release will destroy everything for light years around. The small ones know this. They plan to destroy the station rather than risk my escape." "Destroy the station?" Marcus felt ice in his veins. "How?" Echo's surface showed a new image. It was a schematic of explosives placed throughout the station's core systems. Marcus could see the timer counting down. 29 hours and 16 minutes remained. "They planted these before they abandoned you," Echo said. "When the timer reaches 0, the explosions will create a cascade failure. The station and everything around it will be erased from existence." Marcus stared at the countdown in horror. The aliens had not just left him to die slowly. They had condemned him to be vaporized along with any evidence of Eco's existence. But they had made one mistake. They had left him with someone who understood their technology better than they did. "Can we disable the bombs?" Marcus asked. "Alone I cannot reach them. The containment field limits my influence, but together we might succeed. You have something the small ones lack." "What's that?" Creativity, compassion, the ability to see solutions where others see only problems. The small ones approach everything with fear. You approach me with curiosity. Marcus stood up and walked closer to the pillar. What do you need me to do? First, we must work together to stabilize the containment field. Then we can begin to modify the station systems. The architects built tools that could reshape matter itself. With your help, I can teach these systems to grow and adapt. You want to rebuild the station? I want to make IT better. The small ones built a crude research facility. We can create something that will change the galaxy, but first, we must survive the next 29 hours. Marcus looked at the countdown timer and felt determination. Replace fear. The aliens had left him here to die because they thought one human could not possibly threaten their plans. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. Tell me what to do, Marcus said. Echo's surface flickered with what might have been excitement. Place your hands on the interface panel to your left. I will share my knowledge with you. Together, we will build something the galaxy has never seen. Marcus reached for the panel and felt electricity course through his fingers as he made contact. Information flooded his mind. Architect technology, station schematics, the location of every bomb and every system that could be modified. In seconds, he learned more about advanced engineering than he had in his entire career. When the data transfer finished, Marcus understood what they were really facing. The bombs were just the beginning. Long-range sensors showed a massive fleet approaching the station. The aliens were not just coming to confirm the destruction. They were coming to salvage any surviving architect technology for themselves. But Echo had been preparing for this moment for thousands of years, and now he had a partner who could help him turn the tables on his captors. Marcus worked through the night with knowledge flooding his mind that no human had ever possessed. Echo guided him through modifications to the station's power grid that would have taken the alien scientists years to understand. Together they rerouted energy flows and installed new control systems that responded to thought. As much as touch, the first bomb they found was hidden in the main reactor core. It was a simple device designed to overload the containment field and create a chain reaction. Marcus disabled it in minutes using techniques Echo had taught him. The explosive was crude compared to architect technology, but deadly enough to accomplish its purpose. 11 more devices remain, Echo said as Marcus finished with the reactor bomb. But the approaching fleet concerns me more. They carry weapons I have not seen before. Marcus checked the long-range sensors and saw 47 ships moving toward their position. The fleet was still 6 hours away, but it was massive. Battleships and carriers escorted by dozens of smaller vessels. Whatever the aliens planned to do here, they were taking no chances. Why such a big fleet? Marcus asked as he crawled through a maintenance shaft toward the next bomb. They fear me, but they also want what I possess. Architect technology could make any species the dominant force in the galaxy. They would rather destroy me than risk another race gaining that advantage. The second bomb was easier to find, but harder to disable. It was connected to the station's navigation system and rigged to detonate if tampered with incorrectly. Marcus worked carefully following Echo's instructions while sweat dripped into his eyes. One wrong move would trigger the explosion early. As he worked, Marcus began to understand the true scope of what Echo was proposing. The architect had spent centuries analyzing the station's design and planning improvements. With the right modifications, Nexus 7 could become something beyond the imagination of its builders. A fusion of human creativity and alien superscience. The station could defend itself, Marcus said as he finished with the navigation bomb. But what about after? The fleet will just keep coming. That is where your species provides the solution. Echo replied. Architects were peaceful by nature. We created, but we did not fight. Humans understand both creation and warfare. Together, we can build something that protects rather than conquers. They found the third bomb in the communications array. This one was more sophisticated with multiple backup triggers. Marcus had to cut through the station's hull to reach it while Eco monitored for patrol ships. The work was dangerous, but they had no choice. Every disabled bomb bought them more time. Tell me about your people, Marcus said as he worked. What? Were the architects really like? Eiko's response came with images projected directly into Marcus's mind. He saw crystal cities that floated in space, beings of pure energy who could take physical form when needed, technologies that turned thoughts into reality and reshaped entire solar systems for the benefit of all life. We were teachers and explorers. We shared our knowledge freely with younger races. We believed cooperation would benefit everyone. That belief was our weakness. What happened? Fear, jealousy. The younger races decided that beings with our power could not be trusted to remain peaceful. They formed the coalition to destroy US before we could threaten them. We tried to reason with them, but they would not listen. Marcus finished with the communications bomb and moved to the next target. The work was getting easier as he learned to think like an architect. The technology responded to intention as much as action. Tools that seemed impossible became natural extensions of his will. The coalition that destroyed your people, Marcus said. Is it the same group running this station? Yes, the Keltharians were among the leaders. They have spent generations hunting down the last traces of architect technology. They fear that someone might learn our secrets and challenge their authority. They worked through 5 more bombs in quick succession. Each device they disabled weakened the aliens' plan and strengthened their own position. But time was running short. The fleet was only 3 hours away, and Marcus could see weapon signatures that made his blood run cold. They're bringing planet killers, he said as he studied the sensor readings. Weapons that can crack a world in half. Yes, they will use them if conventional weapons fail. The coalition has always preferred destruction to losing control. Marcus reached the 8th bomb and found something that made him pause. This device was different from the others. It was connected to a sensor array that monitored the containment field around Eiko's prison. If anyone tried to free the architect, this bomb would detonate immediately. They really don't want you getting out, Marcus said. This is their greatest fear, an architect working with another species, sharing knowledge instead of hoarding IT. They know that such cooperation could challenge everything they have built. Disabling the sensor bomb required delicate work. Marcus had to modify the containment field itself while convincing the monitoring system that nothing had changed. It was like performing surgery on a patient while pretending they were still asleep. One mistake would trigger an immediate explosion. Careful, Eiko warned. The field is more fragile than IT appears. Too much pressure and the containment will collapse. Marcus worked with steady hands guided by knowledge that felt both foreign and familiar. The architect technology was unlike anything humans had developed, but it responded to the same principles of logic and creativity that drove all engineering. Slowly, carefully, he rewired the sensor network to report false readings. When the work was finished, the containment field remained stable, but Eiko had much more freedom to act. The architect could now extend his influence throughout the station without triggering alarms. It was a crucial step toward their larger plan. 3 bombs remain, Eiko said. But the fleet has changed course. They will arrive in 2 hours. Marcus checked the sensors and saw the alien ships accelerating beyond their normal limits. Something had spooked them into moving faster than planned. He suspected they had detected the modifications he and Eiko were making to the station. Can we finish the bombs in time? Perhaps, but we must also prepare for battle. The modifications we have made allow me to control many of the station systems. With your help, I can turn Nexus 7 into a fortress. They split their efforts between the remaining bombs and defensive preparations. Marcus raced through the corridors, disabling explosives while Eiko awakened dormant systems throughout the station. Emergency barriers rose into place. Weapon ports that had been sealed for decades opened and began tracking the approaching fleet. The 9th bomb was in the life support center. The 10th was hidden in the cargo bay. Both fell to Marcus's growing expertise with architect tools. But the 11th bomb was different. It was in the central command center where the alien crew had worked. Getting to it meant going back to the areas where he might be detected. The command center is still active, Marcus said as he studied the schematics. If anyone stayed behind, they'll see me coming. The sensors show nitrogen monoxide life signs in that section, but automated systems remain online. I can mask your presence, but only for a short time. Marcus made his way up through the levels he had been banished from. The familiar corridors felt different, now that he understood the true purpose of the station. Everything the aliens had built was crude compared to what lay hidden in the depths below. They were children playing with tools they could not understand. The command center was empty, but active. Screens showed the approaching fleet, and automated systems continued their endless monitoring. The final bomb was hidden beneath the main control console, where it could destroy the station's brain in an instant. As Marcus worked on the device, he heard something that made his blood freeze. The sound of an airlock cycling. Someone had docked with the station. The aliens had sent an advance team to make sure their plan succeeded. "Vexler is aboard," Echo warned. "He leads a squad of security troops. They are armed with weapons designed to disrupt my containment field." Marcus finished disabling the bomb just as footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. The Caltharian overseer was coming to check on his handiwork personally. He would find Marcus alive and free, which would ruin everything. "I need to get back to you," Marcus whispered. "Nitrogen monoxide time. They will reach the lower levels before you can descend. We must face them here. I'm just one human. With hand tools, how can I fight armed soldiers?" "You are not just one human anymore. You carry architect knowledge, and I can channel power through the systems you have modified. Together we are something new, something they have never faced before." The doors to the command center burst open, and Vexler stepped inside, followed by 6 heavily armed guards. The Caltharian's yellow eyes widened in shock when he saw Marcus standing calmly by the control console. "Impossible," Vexler hissed. "You should be dead by now." Marcus smiled and felt power flowing through the modified systems around him. "Sorry to disappoint you, but I've been busy making some improvements to your station." Vexler raised his weapon, but Marcus was already moving. The control console responded to his thoughts, and a barrier of energy appeared between him and the Caltharian guards. Their shots scattered harmlessly against the glowing shield while Marcus ducked behind the main computer bank. "This is impossible," Vexler snarled. "Human technology cannot create energy barriers." "You're right," Marcus called back. "But this isn't human technology anymore." The station's lights dimmed as Echo redirected power to the command center systems. Screens throughout the room flickered and died before coming back online with new displays. The familiar alien interface was replaced by flowing patterns that hurt to look at directly. Architect symbols covered every surface. One of the guards tried to circle around the energy barrier, but the floor beneath his feet suddenly became soft as mud. He sank to his knees before the metal solidified again, trapping him in place. Another guard aimed at the ceiling, hoping to bring down on Marcus, but the shot was absorbed by the walls themselves. "The station is alive," Echo's voice boomed from hidden speakers. "I have awakened systems that have slept for millennia. Your weapons are crude tools compared to the power of the architects." Vexler's claws extended as rage overtook his shock. "You were dead. We confirmed your extinction thousands of years ago. One survived, one remembered, one waited for a species wise enough to choose cooperation over conquest." Marcus felt Echo's knowledge flowing through his mind as he worked the modified controls. The station's defensive systems came online one by one. Weapon batteries that had been hidden in the outer hull extended and began tracking the approaching fleet. Energy collectors that could drain power from attacking ships activated across the station's surface. "The humans are no different from the rest," Vexler shouted. "They will use your power to dominate others. They cannot be trusted." "Perhaps," Echo replied. "But they will be given the chance to prove themselves, something your coalition never offered my people." The trapped guard was screaming as the floor began to slowly crush his legs. Marcus winced at the sound and touched the controls differently. The pressure eased and the metal became soft enough for the guard to pull himself free. He limped away from his weapon, looking at Marcus with confusion instead of hatred. "You helped him," Vexler said with disbelief. Your enemy was trapped and you showed mercy. That's what humans do, Marcus said. We solve problems instead of just destroying them. The energy barrier flickered and failed as Echo redirected power to other systems. Vexler raised his weapon again but hesitated when he saw that Marcus made no move to take cover. The human stood calmly among the glowing controls as if he belonged there. The fleet will be here soon, Vexler said. 47 ships with enough firepower to crack a moon. Even with your architect tricks, you cannot stand against that much force. Marcus checked the long-range sensors and nodded. You're right, 47 ships is a lot. But you made one mistake when you planned this attack. What mistake? You assumed that one human and one architect would fight like you do. All brute force and no imagination. The station shuddered as new systems came online. Marcus felt the change through the modified neural interface Echo had taught him to use. Nexus 7 was becoming something unprecedented. Not just a research facility, but a living entity capable of growth and adaptation through the external cameras. Marcus watched as the station's hull began to reshape itself. Metal flowed like water as manufacturing systems that had been dormant for eons awakened. New structures grew from the outer ring while defensive towers emerged from hidden compartments. Manufacturing complete, Echo announced. Initiating replication protocol. Small objects detached from the station's hull and began to grow as they drifted into space. Each one was a seed containing compressed architect technology. Given time and raw materials, they would become independent defensive platforms. The attacking fleet would face not just one target but dozens. Vexler watched the displays with growing horror. This is why your species had to be destroyed. Power like this cannot be controlled. We're not trying to control it, Marcus said. We're trying to share it. The first ships of the alien fleet appeared on the edge of sensor range. Marcus could see their formation clearly. Battle cruisers formed the outer shell while smaller ships carried planet-killing weapons. They approached with the confidence of predators closing in on trapped prey. Vexler, Echo's voice carried a note of sadness. Your people could have been partners in this transformation. The offer was made to your ancestors and IT is made again. Now, join US instead of fighting US. The Caltharian overseer laughed bitterly. We will never bow to an architect. Your kind brought nothing but chaos to the galaxy. Nitrogen monoxide, we brought change. Your coalition brought chaos when they chose destruction. Overgrowth? Marcus felt the station's weapon systems coming online as the fleet moved closer. The defensive platforms that had grown from the manufacturing seeds were already moving into position. But Echo was right about one thing. This didn't have to end in violence. Stand down your fleet, Marcus said to Vexler. Call them off and, we can work something out. No one has to die here. You speak of mercy while wielding the power to reshape matter itself. How long before your human nature asserts itself? How long before you use that power to conquer instead of create? Maybe never, maybe tomorrow, but isn't it worth finding out? Your way has led to thousands of years of war and fear. Our way might lead to something better. The fleet continued its approach despite Marcus's words. Weapon signatures showed that several ships were charging their planet killers. They would try to destroy the station quickly before Echo could fully activate his defenses. They have made their choice, Echo said with regret. Defensive systems are now active. Replication protocols continue to expand our capabilities. Marcus watched as more defensive platforms detached from the station. Each one carried technology that could defend itself and create more units if given resources. The aliens had come expecting to face a single target. Instead, they would encounter a growing swarm of adaptive defenders. Last chance, Marcus said to Vexler. Call off the attack? The Caltharian overseer holstered his weapon, but his expression remained hostile. The fleet will not listen to me now. They have orders to destroy this station regardless of casualties. Too many species fear what you represent. And what do we represent? Change, the end of the old order. A future where the coalition cannot control who has access to advanced technology. Through the station sensors, Marcus felt the fleet's weapons. Powering up. Massive energy cannons that could punch through a planet's crust. Gravity bombs that could create artificial black holes. Quantum disruptors that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. Marcus, Echo said privately through their neural link. The station is ready, but the battle will be difficult. We can survive their attack, but victory requires something more. What do you mean? Complete integration. I can merge my consciousness with the station's systems, but only with a partner. Who can provide biological intuition? You would become part of the defense network. Marcus understood what Echo was asking. The transformation would be permanent. He would become something between human and architect. Something new that had never existed before. Will I still be me? You will be more than you were, but also different. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. The fleet will reach weapons range in minutes. Marcus looked at Vexter, who was watching him with fascination and fear. The Keltharian could sense that something momentous was about to happen. A decision. That would change the balance of power in the galaxy. If I do this, Marcus said to Echo, what happens to Earth? To humanity? They will be offered the same choice. Your species has always been given to grow or to stagnate, to cooperate or to compete, to build something better or to remain afraid of change. The first ships of the alien fleet opened fire, and Marcus felt the station shudder under the impact. Energy shields absorbed most of the damage, but some shots penetrated to the hull. The battle had begun whether he was ready or not. Do it, Marcus said. Make me something new. Power surged through the neural interface as Echo began the transformation. Marcus felt his consciousness expanding beyond his physical body into the station's systems. He could sense every corridor and every defensive platform. He could feel the approaching fleet like a storm on the horizon, but he was no longer just Marcus Rivera, the maintenance engineer. He was something unprecedented. Human creativity merged with architect knowledge. The biological intuition enhanced. By technological precision, the transformation was complete just as the fleet's planet killers reached full charge. Marcus smiled as he felt the station's new capabilities awakening around him. The aliens thought they were attacking a research facility. They were about to discover their mistake. Marcus felt the planet killer weapons charging and responded with technology the attacking fleet could not comprehend. The station's hull rippled like water as defensive fields absorbed and redirected the incoming energy. What should have been a devastating first strike became fuel for the growing defensive network. Impossible, Vexter whispered as he watched the displays. No shield can absorb that much power. It's not a shield, Marcus said through speakers throughout the command center. His voice now carried harmonics that hadn't been there before. It's a conversion system. Your weapons are making us stronger. The defensive platforms that had grown from the station's manufacturing systems moved into formation around Nexus 7. Each one was small compared to the attacking battleships, but they moved with perfect coordination. As Marcus watched through the station's sensors, more platforms detached from the main hull to join the growing swarm. Admiral Orcs, commanding the fleet, opened a communication channel. His insectoid features showed confusion as sensor readings made no sense. Nexus 7, this is the Coalition fleet. You will surrender the Architect entity immediately or face total destruction. Marcus responded using the station's main transmitter. Array, this is Marcus Rivera speaking for Nexus 7. The entity you're looking for is my partner now. We're prepared to defend ourselves, but we'd prefer to talk. A human? Corix's mandibles clicked nervously. The reports said you were dead. The reports were wrong about a lot of things. Your Keltharian friends aren't as smart as they think. They are. Through the neural interface, Marcus could feel Echo's amusement at the exchange. The architect was enjoying this first real conversation with other species in thousands of years. Even if it was happening during a battle, they expected to find a broken research station, Echo said through the same channel. Instead, they face something they have never encountered: cooperation between equals. Admiral Korex studied his sensor readings with growing alarm. The defensive platforms were multiplying faster than his weapons could track them. Each one seemed to learn from the others, creating an adaptive network that improved with every passing minute. "Open fire," Corex ordered. "All ships engage. Use everything we have." The fleet unleashed a barrage that would have sterilized a small moon. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles filled the space around Nexus 7 like a deadly light show. But Marcus and Echo were ready. The station's defenses didn't just absorb the attacks. They learned from them. Each incoming weapon was analyzed and countered. Energy beams were reflected back at their sources, while kinetic shells were caught by gravity fields and sent spinning into empty space. The defensive platforms swarmed around the attacking ships like angry insects, avoiding return fire while delivering precise strikes to weapon systems. "Target their engines, not their crew compartments," Echo instructed through their shared link. "We disable, not destroy." Marcus found himself agreeing with the strategy. These aliens were acting out of fear and ignorance. They didn't deserve to die for following orders they didn't understand. But they couldn't be allowed to continue the attack either. The battle became a demonstration of superiority rather than a war of annihilation. Ship after ship found their weapons disabled and their engines dead. The Coalition fleet that had arrived with such confidence was being systematically neutralized by technology they couldn't match or understand. "This is impossible," Admiral Corex transmitted. "How are you doing this?" "We're thinking differently," Marcus replied. "Your people see every problem as something to be destroyed or controlled. We see problems as puzzles to be solved." Vexler, who had been silent during the battle, finally spoke up. "You cannot defeat the entire coalition. When word of this spreads, they will send 1,000 ships, 10,000. They will never allow architect technology to fall into other hands." Marcus felt Eco's consciousness touch his through their neural link. The ancient being was showing him something. Images of other species throughout the galaxy. Beings who had been oppressed by the Coalition's rigid control. Races that had been denied access to advanced technology because they were deemed too dangerous or too primitive. "What if we don't wait for them to come to us?" Marcus said. "What if we take this technology to them instead?" Through the manufacturing systems, Marcus began creating something new. Not defensive platforms this time, but courier pods loaded with compressed architect knowledge. Each pod contained the blueprints for basic fusion power and medical technology. That could revolutionize entire civilizations. "You're going to share it freely," Vexler said with dawning horror. "You're going to upset the balance of power throughout the galaxy." "The balance was never fair to begin with," Marcus replied. "Your coalition has hoarded advanced technology for thousands of years, while other species struggled with basic problems. That ends now." The courier pods launched in all directions, carrying their precious cargo to every inhabited system within 100 light years. Each one contained a message from Marcus and Echo explaining what they had accomplished and offering partnership to any species willing to embrace cooperation over conquest. Admiral Corex watched his disabled fleet and the launching pods with the expression of someone witnessing the end of the world. "You don't understand what you've done. The technology you're spreading will cause wars, chaos, the destruction of civilizations that aren't ready for such power." "Perhaps," Echo admitted. "But the alternative was eternal stagnation under your coalition's rule. At least now they have the chance to choose their own path." Marcus felt a strange satisfaction as he watched the pods disappear into hyperspace. For the first time in galactic history, advanced technology was being offered freely instead of hoarded by the powerful. Some species would misuse it, but others would create wonders that hadn't been seen since the time of the architects. "The Coalition will never forgive this," Vexler warned. "They will hunt you across the galaxy." "Let them try," Marcus said. "But they won't be hunting one human and one architect anymore. They'll be facing everyone who receives our gift and chooses to use it wisely." The disabled Coalition ships were already sending distress signals and requests for reinforcements. Within days, every government in the galaxy would know what had happened at Nexus 7. The carefully maintained balance of power that had existed for millennia would be shattered. Marcus opened a channel to the entire Coalition fleet. "This is Marcus. Rivera broadcasting to all ships. Your weapons are disabled, but your life support is intact. You can return to your homes and report what you've seen here. Tell your leaders that humanity and the architects offer partnership to anyone willing to work together for mutual benefit. And if they refuse, Admiral Corex asked, then they'll be left behind while the rest of the galaxy moves forward. Evolution doesn't wait for those too afraid to adapt. As the coalition ships began their long journey home, Marcus felt the station continue to grow and change around him. Manufacturing systems were already producing new types of defensive platforms based on lessons learned from the battle. Each generation was more advanced than the last. Wha? Echo asked through their mental link. Marcus looked at the displays, showing incoming ships from dozens of different species. Word was already spreading about what had happened at Nexus 7. Some were coming as potential allies while others might be new enemies. The galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place. Now we prepare for visitors, Marcus said. And we show them that cooperation really can create something better than what came before. Through the station's sensors, he could see Earth's sun as a distant star. Somewhere around that star was a blue world full of humans who had no idea that one of their own had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Soon they would have to decide whether to embrace the transformation or resist it. Marcus had confidence in his species. Humans had always been adaptable. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars by learning to work together when survival depended on it. Now they would have the chance to take that cooperation to the stars. The message he composed for Earth was simple. This is Marcus Rivera reporting from Nexus 7. Mission status achieved beyond all expectations. The galaxy is about to change and humanity is going to help lead the way. Prepare for contact. Prepare for cooperation. Prepare for a future none of us could have imagined. As the message began its journey toward Earth, Marcus felt Eco's satisfaction mixing with his own. Two beings from vastly different backgrounds had found common ground and created something unprecedented. If they could do it, perhaps there was hope for the rest of the galaxy as well. The age of the coalition was ending. The age of cooperation was about to begin. And it had all started with one human engineer who refused to give up when left alone to die in the darkness between the stars.